Hi, I am going to begin my presentation. I'm Jessica Urenko, and my population at risk I'm going to be focusing on is going to be middle childhood immigrant children. Rationale and background. Why am I interested in this topic? I'm interested in this topic because about 17 years ago, when I started my teaching career, I started at Reading High School here in Pennsylvania, and has a high percentage of Spanish-speaking students. And right off the bat, they gave me three bilingual Spanish-speaking family consumer science classes. And my first reaction was, well, I don't even really speak Spanish. I only speak it a little bit. And they said, well, neither do we. So do the best that you can and, just go for it. So I did. And I ended up learning so much from those students. I love listening to their stories. And, despite the communication issues, I learned so much from them. They were very committed, very conscientious, and very resilient. So I've always had an interest since I started my career in working with those students because I recognize the need for the support, and I see the connection between once they're able to really embrace and become fluent in the language, they are able to be successful in school, and education provides them the background for success in life. That's why I'm not only just in this program, but I'm also in another graduate program at Penn State, and I'm one class from getting my English as a second language certification. And a part of me was like, why am I still doing an education class when I'm pursuing social work? But I feel that there's a link, obviously, and I'm going to show you through this presentation to those immigrant children and social work. This is a quote that I found from Eric Erickson that I really liked because I think it has a lot to do with what we're talking about with the school-age children. It says, children love and want to be loved, and they very much prefer the joy of accomplishment to the triumph of hateful failure. Do not mistake a child for his symptom. And I think that is, with so many years teaching, I recognize the importance of that children are way more than the negative aspects of their behavior or their development. They are little people who are turning into, hopefully successful adults, and they want to accomplish things. That is what they really want to do. Even when they act sometimes like they don't care, they do. Who are the immigrant children in our population, and where are they coming from? In 2013, 17.4 million children resided with at least one immigrant parent, or 25% of the United States children's population. U.S. immigrants and their U.S.-born children now number approximately 80 million persons, or 1/4 of the overall population. So those two statistics kind of go hand in hand. About 1/4 of our population right now are related to or have an immigrant living in their home. Approximately 50% of all immigrants describe themselves as having limited proficiency in English. In my experience, or where I live, I would say those numbers are higher, but it does differ depending on the immigrants that are coming in and what part of the country you're living in. 31% of the poor, which is recorded as being 200% below poverty threshold children in the U.S., are those from immigrant families. So that's a nice big chunk of our poor are from those immigrant families. The largest number of immigrants come from Mexico, 28%. I'm going to show you, the next slide shows the top 10 largest immigrant groups. Now, this is coming from the Migration Policy Institute, and you'll notice a large part of it, almost half are other, because there are so many different, obviously, countries and people coming from all over. But you could see by the chart that the most predominant area of immigrants are coming from Mexico. What makes these children an at-risk population? language and communication barriers, role identity confusion. And I'll talk about this in a little bit more. They have a hard time knowing where they stand in this country. They don't know if they belong, if they're citizens, if they can relate to the other kids. They want so badly just to fit in like all the other kids. They also are confused where their role is within their family because they end up taking on a lot more responsibility than many of our traditional American kids who were born here. They're at risk for poverty. They a lot of times have separation from their parents, and they often suffer trauma from the migration. Children as interpreters. As ESL, English as a Second Language students, become fluent in English, non-speaking parents come to rely on them as interpreters. These children are utilized for medical, educational, commercial, and occupational translating. In other words, their parents become extremely reliant on them to communicate with everyone in that outside world. This responsibility may cause role reversal and role confusion within households. Okay, I'm going to show you, I had an interview with a friend of mine, actually. She grew up here in America. However, she is an immigrant. She was about a year old when they came here. I'll let her kind of tell her story a little bit more. But she is a great example of an immigrant child who did take on that adult responsibility. And she'll share some of the stories with you in regards to her growing up here and speaking the language for her parents. Hi, I'm here with my friend Christina, and we're going to talk a little bit about what it was like for her to grow up as an immigrant child in the United States. How long have you lived in the U.S.?
24 years.
And you are?
25 now.
Okay, so you came here when you were a year old?
Yes.
So you have no memory of living anywhere else?
No.
Okay.
No.
What family members did you reside with as you grew up?
It was my parents, my grandfather, and my uncle.
Okay, and of those people, who spoke Spanish as their first language and English as their second?
All four of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how old were you when you became fluent in English?
Since I was little, I learned Spanish originally, but then as I went to pre-K, I learned English and Spanish both at the same time.
Do you remember any of the challenges of learning English back then? Do you don't remember feeling frustrated or anything? It just kind of happened easily for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Which language is predominantly spoken in your home now with your family? Well, tell me, who do you live with now?
Well, I live with my fiance and my two kids, and in our house we speak English. But in my mother's house, we predominantly speak Spanish.
Okay, so your mom still speaks Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what affected acquiring a new language having your relationship with other family members? And we kind of talked about this a little bit, like about the roles that you had in your house growing up, kind of acting as the translator for your parents. Can you tell me a little bit of what that was like?
Well, as far as I can remember, I was always the one that was pushed in front. I always was the one that ordered the pizza. If we were customer service, I was there translating, and anything they needed, even as simple as reading a letter, I was always there. So I kind of felt like they were my kids in a sense.
Okay. Can you tell me about like one of your first memories of having to kind of act as an adult almost in order to advocate for your parents?
When I was 6, we lived in the house and the attic leaked really bad. And my parents were really furious and they wanted the landlord to fix the attic. And I remember them saying, you need to tell her that you need to get this attic fixed. And they were standing behind me, but the landlord, she was this older woman, and she's really angry. And she's like, I can't, and it kind of became tense. But I think I can remember as far as when I was 6, I was in the middle of this argument, explaining to her, and almost feeling the frustration that they felt.
That your parents were feeling.
It's like I translated the frustration that, we need this attic fixed. It's like leaking. We're not going to pay you rent if you don't fix it. And then we ended up getting a whole new remodeled attic, which was cool. But it was kind of, that's when I remember
you felt responsible.
I can handle more than
I
should.
A typical 6-year-old would not have to argue with the landlord and advocate for their parents.